Let's just see how long this lasts. Dean Leggy, Matt DeBerry, and Fisher is joining us, a special guest today on another edition of Riding Home. We're recording this before the NFL draft, Matt, but how much do you think the draft matters for the programs in terms of recruiting? And just your take on that initially, because
Well, it's always
it sure is looking right this second, about 12 hours beforehand, that Trayvon Walker is going to go number one overall to the Jags.
I mean, it's huge, especially seeing an in-state guy like Trayvon, a five-star who Kirby needed at the time. He signed out of that 2019 class,
Yeah.
but he only had one kid drafted, Isaiah McKenzie, when he first got to Georgia. So to see more and more and more each and every year, I mean, they broke the school record last year with 9. I think it's going to be 12 plus this year. So it just shows where this program has come under Kirby. And it was easy to get recruits before all this, right? Because the staff is full of ace recruiters. But when you can walk into a living room and show them a trophy and a ring, and then say, Google how many guys we put in the NFL recently, as Fisher bounces already, it's going to be even easier, right? So it
Well,
is a big deal. And to have 5 guys maybe go in the first round and the number 1 overall pick, I mean, this is a big deal for the University of Georgia tonight and throughout the weekend.
and it gives them the ability to showcase their development skills. Obviously, at this stage, it's hard to talk about Georgia and not mention the national championship. Make sure you're picking up DAWGSTRUCTION, running out of copies of what I've got. So, I know we're going close to graduation and Father's Day. It is a great gift. I've already done some Father's Day's gifts for folks. Um, One thing to me, I was thinking about last night, Matt. This is kind of a strange segue. I was watching the Greg Norman 30 for 30, um, and he never won the Masters, which is not the only major in golf, but it is the major of the
Yeah.
most major of the majors. And it occurred to me that Greg Norman lost in sort of spectacular ways, one way or the other. And I could all I could think of is heading into Indianapolis. What do you think that Kirby's state of mind was going into that game? Because after the fact, it's easy to say that he was confident. But what happens if they lose that game?
Uh, we keep hearing what we have been the past few years, right? Kirby can't get it done. Georgia can't get over the national championship hump, the Alabama hump, right? I mean, it's the narrative
Yeah,
just continues, and he smashed it, and it was about time because I felt kind of like he should have smashed it a few years ago, and almost did in the other national championship game. But again, they burned the boats. He knew that if they wanted to win the championship, bring it home, they had to go through Alabama, and they were out and they were prepared. And the way they beat Michigan and handled them, and as confident as they were going into that game, and just totally beat them from start to finish, they knew. I mean, they were ready for Alabama. They came in extremely confident, maybe a little on edge, a little bit. I'm sure they all had those butterflies going on for sure in the locker room and before kickoff, but once they strapped it up, they came ready to play. And I thought the coaches did an awesome job of scheming. They did their part. The players did their part. Total team win there. And we're seeing it in the draft. We're seeing this generational type of defense, one we've been talking about all season, come to fruition. And for me, it all goes back to recruiting and of course, but not only do you have to get the 5 stars, but you still have to develop them. And we're seeing all these 5 stars coming through Georgia are really stepping it up and playing like the guys we thought they would be coming out of high school. I mean, we went to go see Trayvon Walker in the story you wrote that's on Dog Post now. I mean, we were shooting hoops with him, and we
right.
watched him practice, and they were dogs out there. That was one of the best high school teams in the state, and you could
Yeah.
see the athleticism that he brought to the table, just rebounding and scoring. And we got a big in-depth interview with him, just shooting hoops with him afterwards. Just a great kid. So we're happy for Trayvon, and would love to see him go number 1 to the Jaguars today. And for guys like Jordan Davis who have earned this, Devonta Wyatt has had a long Georgia career and has really helped this team last year. Lewis Seen, a guy that Kirby identified early in the process, wanted to make sure he got out of Texas, has become an excellent
Yeah.
player. Quay Walker, 5-star. Channing Tindall, high 4-star. These guys really proved why they were highly ranked out of high school and why the staff, Kirby Smart especially, went after them as hard as they did.
Yeah, and I'm showing that Trayvon article as we speak uh, right now. He the athleticism, it was pretty obvious. You know, he didn't have a notable moment in 2021, but you know, that's not what a career in the NFL or really any career. What's your most notable moment in your career doing dog post stuff? I don't know how long you've been doing this for.
Since 2014.
Eight
Really,
years.
my favorite part, I mean, covering the team is awesome, right? Seeing the different stadiums, going to all the games, getting treated well, as a media member, especially at places like the Sugar Bowl, Orange Bowl, Rose Bowl. But
Sugar
seeing
Bowl.
guys like Trayvon Walker play and Trevor Lawrence, I mean, two guys from the state of Georgia that I've been able to cover for years and years, both go number one, or if Trayvon goes number one today, that'd be back to back guys from the state of Georgia. Watching Mecole Hardman, what he does, Andrew
Mhm.
Thomas, watching him all through high school, Jamari. I mean, N'Kobe Dean. I remember driving out to Memphis for his announcement and
Yeah,
signing. That was a big deal. I mean,
tell that story real fast, Matt. I mean, well, go ahead.
yeah, I wasn't sure. We had a good feeling that he could very well pick Georgia, or else we wouldn't have gone. But on the drive up there, a long, boring drive through, got to go to Birmingham and then up through Mississippi and all that. It was not fun. But I thought, I still think there's a chance he could go to Ole Miss. So it was back and forth, and just a great kid. They did it really well up at Lake Horn, and he was a big deal. And I know it came down to the wire, and I know he's a guy that Glenn Schumann really wanted. So I got there, started making calls, started working, went to the local Mexican joint, had myself some dinner up
Yes.
there at the lake,
Yes.
Lake Horn or Horn Lake. Keep forgetting, but no, it was an experience for sure. Right after Christmas, it was in that weird December like 28 type of
Oh.
signing day, I think. So
No, it
there was
was
a lot
right
going on.
before
Right
Christmas. My
before, right
my
before
wife was
Christmas. Yeah.
not pleased about this. I gotta tell you,
Well,
because
you
I
went to go see
was.
Trey Sanders.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So because
yeah,
that looked very certainly like it was going to
yeah.
be Georgia.
So
Um,
it's those type of moments that really stand out. And on days like this, when these guys are picked in the first round, it's hard not to think about like, man, I remember, shooting hoops with Trayvon, after basketball practice, or all those interviews with me, Cole, and, all that
just
stuff.
getting into the gym that day was a
Yeah.
whole
Yeah.
experience. I don't know if you remember that or not, but um, I went down to see Trey Sanders because it looked like for certain he was going to go to Georgia, and he picked Alabama, and we knew that uh, earlier. You could start telling the night before, but I was already down. I can't. Where did I stay? Tallahassee? Can you remember?
I think so. I think
Something
so.
like that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
think I stayed in Tallahassee. But anyway, and I think someone was like, "Well, why are you gonna stick around?" I was like, well, it's just what it is. You're already down there. It was
Yeah.
another 2 hours from Tallahassee, I think, almost 2 hours to where he was, and a hurricane had just come through and really leveled that part of the Panhandle. It was bad. But I guess the only thing I was getting to on all of this was, um, with Trayvon, he didn't have any one moment that you can kind of recall off the top of your head for his time at Georgia, but that's not necessarily how careers are made. I mean, you just listed like seven things just there. One of which is a consistent thing, which is going going to eat basically at the Sugar Bowl or other places. But most careers are everyday grinds, and can Trayvon do that on an everyday basis in the NFL? Can N'Kobe Dean do that? I mean, I think he certainly can. Trayvon, I would take him number one because he is the upside to me is a little bit better than Hutchinson. I do think it seems to me as an unqualified uh, scout that those two guys are the most gifted players in the draft. There's the quarterbacks are weak. What are your Falcons going to do? I mean, when people are watching this on Sunday, will they
Yeah.
be pleased? I mean, I doubt it. So just go ahead and take your shots.
Yeah, it's hard to hate on whoever they get because they need so much. I'd be cool with one of the offensive linemen because I think there's a lot of receivers in this draft. I mean, I'd be cool with a number of receivers. So if they take the best one, Garrett Wilson, I guess I'd be okay with it, but I wouldn't mind one of those guys in the second round. Got to get some pressure off the edge. So if maybe a Kayvon Thibodeau is there or another edge guy they like, I wouldn't be upset about that. I think it's going to be hard for me to hate whoever they pick, just because I think whoever they pick is going to help them, or should, and it could be a guy at a number of different positions. So eventually they'll get a wide receiver. I don't think it has to be Garrett Wilson at 8. If they do pick a receiver at 8, I hope it's him. But I wouldn't be upset with an edge rusher, one of the offensive linemen. I think that's one of the top heavy, deeper position groups in the draft. So getting one of those guys would help, and then get your quarterback eventually in a couple of years. Don't want them to pick a quarterback in the first round,
You
or
know,
in this
even if it
draft
were
at all. Though
Malik, who
I
you're a
love
big
Malik.
right.
Yeah, just no. They need more help. He's not going to make you a play. No one's going to make them a playoff contender solely at the number 8 spot. But just I think they more help everywhere else.
And then you were saying, I got two things to say here. Number one, you said I can't hate anybody that they're going to draft. Why don't you give that a year or two, right? I mean, that's usually how
Right.
that works.
Yeah. Yeah.
But secondly, the difference between the way that Kirby and company are recruiting or having to recruit, and the way you build an NFL franchise. Kirby, Nick Saban, they don't have to wait around for pick number 3. They can just go, and that, I think they've taken such advantage of that over time, and they've for a long time, it was about locking down the state. That's a ridiculous thing anymore because it's just not practical. I think I don't brag very much, but I do think I was one of the first people that was back in the 2005 6 era. You don't have to get all the guys from Georgia. You just have to get the best guys that you can get wherever they're from. And we've seen that a lot with Kirby when you start talking about Keely Ringo, Darnell, um, I don't know, Jordan Davis. I mean,
Yeah.
North Carolina's not exactly a long pull away.
Mikael
Neither is
Sherman, 5-star from
yeah, yeah.
Virginia. Um,
Carson from Jacksonville. I mean,
yeah.
getting guys from I don't know if people consider Jacksonville, Georgia. It is about once a year in the fall, but it's a different situation. You do also too hear the struggle of having to consistently recruit slash work for these college coaches. It's a very difficult job. It is. They have to grind things out. But I mean, I don't feel sorry for any of them. They're choosing this life and they're extremely well paid. And if they don't want to do this particular life, there's high school football that they can coach. There's also the professional. There are 3 professional leagues, Matt.
Yeah. When you work hard, it pays off with championships, right? And that brings in more money. These guys are only going to make more and more money over time. But when you're at a place like Georgia and you're competing for championships, you go to California and you get guys like Brock Bowers and Ernest Green. You go to Arizona and get Keely Ringo. Vegas, Darnell Washington. They recently got a 2023 commit from Las Vegas. So
Lewis
locking up
Sing,
the state. Lewis Sing from Texas, another guy.
AD
So
Mitchell. I mean,
AD Mitchell. When you're going into Texas and getting some of the best, and you're going into California and getting some of the best kids from California, that's locking up the state is great if you get the guys you absolutely want in state. But eventually, if you want to win championships, you have to recruit from everywhere. You can't just stay in certain pockets. So, but again, guys like Trayvon Walker, Nolan Smith, those in-state guys, you got to have them. But yeah, then a Jordan Davis from North Carolina is also needed, and quarterbacks from whoever, wherever. So
how many of
they're
these
doing it.
guys? How many of these guys are from Georgia? I see one guy, Trayvon Walker. Kenny
I
is
guess
not. Zion
it,
Logue is not. Darnell is not. Jalen
yeah,
Carter is not. I mean, the students may be. And I can't see
20.
who's on the
That
crease
doesn't
there.
look like Chris Smith, 29 in the corner. That might be
That
another
is Chris Smith.
29. That is
Yeah,
Chris.
that
Okay.
is Chris,
Okay.
who is blocked out by
Yeah.
future first round forearm Jalen Carter. I mean, um, you don't have to have guys from your home state. That's come on. It doesn't have to be that way. But I think it gives you a great base. It just doesn't give you it doesn't guarantee moments like this. That's all. Um, I love the draft. I don't have an NFL team. I don't really care. Um, I think it's a great product. It has been the number one television product in this country for ever since Sunday Night Football went to NBC, which
Yeah,
is 14 years, something like that. It's an excellent competitive. I mean, I watch the NFL, the NHL playoffs, the NBA playoffs, Major League, anything playoffs is great. But the NFL seems like a playoff every single week, Matt. And this thing is the original freak out moment for everyone involved with their teams, because you really, although you still have to do things through the draft, it's such a huge moment for the programs, for the players.
yeah,
I say programs, I mean franchises. It's not like signing day. Signing day really can't go wrong if you can go things can go wrong if you're a player tonight. Um, and
yeah.
it's only one moment in time too. I love it. I think it's a fascinating look at the world that we live in a little bit on a much bigger scale.
Yeah, it's a combination between two great things, college football and the NFL. You get great
Right.
stories. There's always drama involved, especially in the first round. Who's taken before who makes the crazy trade. So there's always drama, there's always excitement. And then every once in a while, every few picks, you get this great story you get, of the kid and how far he's come, his life story, and you get to see him with his family. So it's a big day for so many people, right? The kids, the coaches, the NFL teams, the fans, everyone remembers where they were, when Bills drafted Josh Allen. A lot of people didn't like it, but it's memorable, right? When the Falcons drafted Michael Vick, I couldn't have been happier at the time. And I
I
remember
remember
that.
th- I
I mean,
remember
it's a big
them
deal.
making the trade with the Chargers, right?
Yeah, yeah,
I think it was one of the strokes of geniuses, of
yeah,
which there have been very few in the Atlanta franchise history.
yeah.
Um, that
The
was a
trade up
stroke
for
of
Julio Jones was huge. That was a big deal. Um, they won that trade, but it doesn't always work out. I mean, the Bills gave up more to get Sammy Watkins, but you know, it's crazy going back and looking at that stuff. But no, the draft is awesome.
It is. And all the guys are going to get drafted from Georgia this weekend. We don't know totally all of their stories, but the one thing that I've noticed with these players, particularly, and I'm just going to say three guys: Lewis Cine, Jordan Davis, and and Trayvon Walker, is the tightness they have with their parents, or a parent very specifically. Um, N'Kobe Dean, you were there for that. That was definitely a family affair when he signed with Georgia. But I don't. I've spent some time with Trayvon Walker's father. I don't know him, right? I mean, we've talked about a lot of stuff. Um, I will share that they didn't know if they would leave for the draft early in the season, and I'll tell you that neither his father nor I felt like he would be going number one, or we wouldn't have had that conversation that night. But I very much remember talking with Steed, and he wasn't certain what the future would be, and that's honestly, for people who watch this and their children are, just whether their children are growing up, but certainly if their children are in sports. I've done this long enough to know, and lived through a college experience enough to know, that there are no certainties, and we can't know what the future will hold. And it occurred to me too, Matt, watching this stuff, guys that are second round, third round guys. I mean, they might be comfortable for a year, but soon thereafter, they're going to have to literally compete for their job. And these guys may be out of football by 24, 25.
Yeah, that's just how it is. I mean, if
But could
27
you,
is old in the NFL now,
but
it's
could you,
crazy.
could you imagine right now if you had to wrestle Chad or Rusty? That would be, I mean, first of all, physically wrestling one of the, or Jake,
Yeah,
or or I would have to wrestle either Dash or you're frozen or and then now you're back. Dash or
Nice.
Roddy or well Rusty or Chip or Mark or who are the other people? Who are the people in your neighborhood? That would be so
Yeah.
fascinating
Mike.
to
Yeah.
Mike, Jeff, Centel in Atlanta, or at Dog Nation, I should say. These guys are literally having to do that.
Yeah.
Um, I thought Aaron Murray would be in the league for a particular amount of time just because of his how smart he is. It's brutal. It's a brutal situation up there.
Yeah. Um, you think they'll? How many guys do you think will get drafted? Do you think Schaefer and Camarda will be kind of 13 and 14?
Yeah, I don't. I think Camarda is probably the least likely just because of the position. He definitely improved over time. He was very shaky at the
Yeah.
start. Um,
Yeah.
Schaefer,
Maybe, kind of,
I would
possibly
say,
late. You
I would
know.
say probably only because of what was it about? Who are the group now? We'll just go through it right now. You got Walker, Davis, Wyatt,
Three
Tyndall.
linebackers. Yeah.
Hold on, no,
Walker.
don't throw me off yet. Um, the other one. Wait, I already said Quay Walker. I feel like.
Okay. Okay.
Um, did I say Tyndall? I did not say Quay Walker.
Okay.
Uh, you got help me out, Matt. Lewis
Well,
Cine.
you got two defensive backs, three
Okay.
linebackers, three defensive linemen. So
All right.
on defense,
That's
that's
there. There's
eight.
eight. There's eight.
And then you got
You've got
four on offense, the two running backs, George
Shamari.
Pickens and Jamari.
Well,
So
hold on
that's,
now. You got the two running backs. That makes it 10. Now we've
yeah,
got Jamari,
and George.
Schaefer, George, and the possibility of Camarda.
Yeah.
That's the 14, right?
Johnny Fitzpatrick, maybe
And John Fitzpatrick will
15,
be a
maybe.
15. I would say it hardly. I hardly know. I'm certainly not qualified to be a GM. Although some of these GMs would. I'm not sure they're qualified to do what they're supposed to do either. Um, I doubt Fitzpatrick. I wouldn't be
Yeah.
shocked if he were a seventh round guy. I doubt Schaefer, although I would not be shocked if he were a sixth or seventh round guy. Camarda, I doubt it because of the position. Everybody else you mentioned, I would suggest would probably get drafted over the next few days.
Yeah.
And again, it just speaks to A, what Georgia's losing, but B, what they developed and recruited over time. If you don't, I mean, they're not going to have 13 guys next year, um, but they could have two running backs. They could
Yeah.
have multiple wide receivers, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Kieris and Blaylock for sure. Um, you could have McConkey too, although I doubt that. Darnell. I don't think Warren Erickson will get drafted, but
Warren
okay.
McClendon will.
Warren McClendon. I'm going to take away Erickson. Um,
Project Jones.
Definitely the ability for Jones, Carter on the defensive line. I think possibly, although I doubt it, Logue on the defensive side. Nolan Smith for sure. Chris Smith, I think, would make you 11. Keely Ringo would make you 12. Um, it's not
Maybe
going
Robert
to.
Beal with a big
Well,
year.
I mean, that's 13. If I'm taking
Mm,
away,
yeah.
Warren Erickson, who I don't think will get drafted, but it could be a free agent guy for sure. And we're still talking about 10 guys, right? I mean,
Yeah.
with some of the people I said, I mean, Zion Logue probably won't leave.
Yeah.
Blaylock doesn't have to. I've
Stetson Bennett,
left out.
maybe.
I do not think Stetson will get drafted, but Eric Gilbert will.
Yeah. It just goes to show because we talk about 12 guys in this draft, easy being picked. If
Right.
they do go to the playoff again, then we're starting to talk about a machine. You lose all this
Well,
talent
they
and
should.
still having a really, really good team next year, then this train isn't going anywhere at that point. So,
They
um,
should. This
yeah,
is also too, they've gotten to the stretch here where they're playing these big games to start the season every single year. You got Oregon this year. Is Oklahoma next year, or is it the year? I mean, they play Clemson in 24. They play OU. They
it's got to
play
be
OU, but
Texas
it doesn't
soon.
start the season in 23. as it stands right now. Now we don't know what the league will do, and it does not look like Oklahoma is going to come into the league before that game is played. So that's going to be a little bit strange and tricky. But I I don't think it's out of the question at all. I mean, some of us have been talking about this for some time. This team, excuse me, this program has been recruiting like this, Matt. It's not surprising. So for them to get 10 guys every draft, I don't think that's out of the well, every draft, maybe not, but anywhere from 6 to 10, that's not
Yeah.
crazy. Not
And
for this
occasionally,
team, and
occasionally you're
occasionally
going to
12.
have one like this where it's
Yeah.
just a ton of guys.
And they're not always
Um,
going to win the national championship before these big moments either, right? I
yeah,
mean, that's going to come and go too, I think. But we're going to talk more about what would have happened if they didn't win the national championship and what it would mean if they did in terms of the future. Thanks for watching Riding Home with Dean and Matt. We'll see you on the website.